Night folds around the worlds like a velvet shroud, and the void before time breathes in silence. There is no wind here, no pulse of mortal blood, only the endless black between stars unborn. In that measureless stillness, the orbis dreams of itself. Thought and possibility swirl together, a quiet ocean of what might be. It is neither cold nor warm, for no sun yet burns. All is waiting, a hush so deep that even eternity seems to listen. From this primeval slumber, flickers of awareness begin to shimmer. They are not yet gods, not yet anything that can be named, but intentions, bright curiosities testing the edges of nothingness. One spark becomes many, and the void ripples with first light. They are the Etida, spirits of the dawn, whose dance will weave the laws of existence. Some lean toward order, longing to give shape and boundary. Others drift toward change, delighting in the wild rush of unbound creation. Their desires echo like distant music, and the music becomes the pattern of reality. Time itself is born as a gentle rhythm, the first heartbeat of Mundus not yet formed. A current flows where there was none, and the silent sea begins to remember motion. Eons stretch like gossamer threads, each one carrying the thought of becoming. In those endless moments, the seeds of all future stories are carried, the glint of every star, the whisper of every mortal breath. Listeners of the present may imagine a brilliant flash, but the birth of existence is softer than that. It is the slow unfurling of a dream, a candle lit in infinite dusk. Among the newborn spirits, some see beauty in permanence. They envision stable lands, skies of reliable light, and a gentle cycling of seasons. Others feel the pull of freedom, a craving for flux where nothing need remain. They revel in the promise that every stone may be reshaped, every law unbound. From these opposing longings, the great conversation of the cosmos begins. A question shimmers. What should reality be? The answers mingle like drifting constellations, each radiant, each incomplete. Far at the edge of this debate, a shadow stirs, not a darkness of malice, but of fierce transformation. It is the stirring that will one day be named Mehrunes Dagon. Even in these first tremors, his essence is the spark of unmaking, the wildfire that clears the forest so new life may rise. He is not yet the prince of destruction. He is change untempered, a hunger for the next dawn. The other spirits sense him like a storm behind the horizon, thrilling and unsettling. Some turn away in caution. Others lean closer, curious to see what fire might bloom. The dawn of being ripens. Realms form like pearls in deep water, shimmering pockets where intention hardens into world. Stars awaken. Planes of thought crystallize. Each spirit seeks a domain, a melody in the grand harmony. The Edra plan the mortal sphere, dreaming of a place where their own essence might take shape and teach the lessons of endurance. The Daedra, more fluid and free, watch with a glimmer of mischief and awe. They will not bind themselves, but they will bear witness, and some will meddle for delight or design. And so the silent void becomes a chorus of beginnings. The first light drapes the newborn orbis in gentle color, and the wheel of existence turns. Yet in every turning there is friction, and in every creation, the faint echo of its undoing. That is the quiet truth that hums beneath the stars. To shape is to unshape. To build is to invite the next great change. In that soft inevitability, Mehrunes Dagon's destiny waits like an ember, glowing unseen. Breathe now, dear listener. Imagine that ember resting in the cradle of endless night. Feel the weightless moment before fire catches, before worlds collide. The story of destruction is not one of rage alone, but of the restless pulse that keeps all things from sleeping forever. In the hush of this first chapter, we rest at the edge of that truth, poised before the roil of dawn. The newborn cosmos drifts like a lantern over dark water, and the first light stretches across endless void. Stars awaken one by one, their gentle shimmer a hymn to possibility. Yet in that hush, a deeper murmur flows, a rhythm of change beneath the calm surface. Every new star is a promise, but every promise carries the quiet knowledge that it must one day fade. The Orbis itself seems to breathe with that understanding, an inhale of creation and an exhale of dissolution. The Aetida, those earliest spirits, wander through forming realms. Their essences glint like moonlit mist, some bright with stability, others restless with motion. They speak without words, weaving intention into currents of thought. Among them, those who will be named the Edra gather their plans. They envision mountains that endure, seas that cradle life, skies that turn with faithful rhythm. They dream of a world where mortals might grow and learn, their brief lives a lesson in perseverance. But beyond the councils of harmony, other spirits dance wilder patterns. These are the Daedra to be, delighted by change, unwilling to sacrifice their freedom for permanence. They are not cruel by nature, yet they do not bind themselves to the slow laws of the mortal sphere. They are tides without shore, winds without map. Their laughter ripples through the forming void like a playful storm, reminding all that existence need not be still to be beautiful. Within this unbounded chorus, a particular current gathers, a force neither fully bright nor dark, but vibrant with hunger. It is the early pulse of what mortals will one day call Mehrunes Dagon. He is not a villain in this first dawn. He is the inevitability of transformation. Where others see danger, he feels opportunity. His essence is the crack of ice as spring begins, the sudden spark that splits a night of silence. Even before he is named, he is motion waiting to unmake and remake. The Aetida sense his presence as a distant rumble. Some listen in wonder, feeling the thrill of a force that promises renewal through destruction. Others turn their thoughts toward fortification, fearing that too much change will shatter the fragile order they hope to build. And so a subtle tension threads the early heavens, a dance of reverence and caution around a flame that has not yet burst into fire. Time lengthens like a silver river. The first worlds take shape, and each carries a reflection of its makers. Planes of shimmering thought spin outward, shining realms of starlight, shadowed domains of mystery, landscapes of dream and storm. The mortal world, Mundus, begins to coalesce, a place where permanence and impermanence will meet. Its foundation is a daring experiment, a space where both endurance and change must live side by side. Dagon watches with the patience of a tide. He does not seek to halt creation, nor to guard it. Instead, he waits for the moment when every mountain's heart remembers that stone is but cooled fire. He senses that in every structure lies the seed of collapse, and in every collapse, the chance for rebirth. To him, the forming worlds are not fragile. They are alive precisely because they can break. As the Orbis spins into ordered beauty, the first flames of transformation glow faintly at its edges. They are not yet the roaring fires of Oblivion's Deadlands. They are quiet, flickering hints of future upheaval, a gentle foreshadowing. Mortals who will one day walk under Tamriel's skies cannot imagine this era, yet the story of their lives begins here, in the patient ember of inevitable change. Consider this, listener, as you drift toward rest. Every heartbeat you feel carries both creation and dissolution. The stars above your dreams are burning even as they shine. The breath you take is the proof that endings and beginnings are one. The murmur of the first flames is the murmur of your own life, soft, persistent, eternal in its cycle. And so the first chapter closes like a lullaby of fire and shadow. The Aetidas settle into their chosen realms, and the wheel of existence turns more swiftly. Yet somewhere beyond sight, the ember of Mehrunes Dagon brightens, awaiting the day when silence will break and the Deadlands will roar. For now, the cosmos sleeps in its fragile perfection, and we too may rest in the knowledge that even in stillness, change is always whispering. Softly the ages drift, and the newborn worlds settle into their turning. Seas breathe against still-forming shores. Stars trace patient circles across an infinite dusk. In the mortal sphere, time at last gathers meaning, and the stories of peoples yet unborn begin to take shape. Among the earliest cultures to awaken beneath these silent skies are the Chimer, the wandering elves whose amber eyes hold both devotion and defiance. They wander the broad lands that will one day be called Morrowind, carrying with them the memory of distant Veleth, the prophet who led them away from the old Almarai gods toward a new and perilous covenant. The Chimer are seekers of challenge. Their lives are prayers woven of ash and promise, their spirits sharpened by the austere landscapes of their volcanic homeland. In every wind-scarred canyon and beneath every red mountain peak, they whisper hymns to their chosen tribunal. Vivek, the poet-warrior, Almalexia, the mother of mercy, and Sotha, Sil, the clockwork sage. Yet their devotion is not blind. They know that strength is proven only when tested, and that faith without trial is a hollow flame. It is within this crucible of belief that the House of Troubles emerges, a quartet of dread Daedric princes who stand not merely as foes, but as necessary tempters. To the Chimer, these beings are not simple enemies. They are the harsh teachers of endurance. Their names echo like distant thunder. Molagbal, the king of rape; Sheogorath, the mad god of endless change; Malakath, the betrayed and bitter outcast; and Mehrunes Dagon, the incinerating storm. Each embodies a lesson of struggle, and each tests the resolve of mortal hearts. Molag Bal presses upon the Chimer the agony of domination, forcing them to treasure the fragile light of freedom. Sheogorath scatters madness like seeds upon wind, reminding them that sanity is a gift earned anew each day. Malakath howls the pain of exile, teaching that honor can survive even when cast aside. And Dagon, ever the flame in the storm, offers the most violent teaching of all, that destruction is not merely an end, but a beginning disguised in fire. The Velothai, wise women, speak of these princes not as distant nightmares, but as mirrors held before the soul. Face them, the old chants say, and you face the corners of your own heart. The trials they bring are feared, yet they are invitations to growth. To survive the House of Troubles is to walk the edge of the sword and emerge tempered like folded steel. For Mehrunes Dagon, this role is almost a benediction. He is not the mindless breaker of stones, but the crucible itself, the blaze that refines and reshapes. When a Chimer village is consumed by sudden fire, the elders do not merely mourn. They search the ashes for signs of hidden purpose. They whisper that Dagon has passed among them, testing resolve and renewing the covenant of struggle. In their mythology, each volcanic eruption is his voice, a reminder that the mountain's heart is alive and that life itself is a dance with flame. As dusk settles over the ashen plains, one can imagine the Chimer gathered around sacred fires, their chants a low rhythm against the night. They speak of the Four Corners not with hatred, but with a wary reverence. For they know that without these tempests, their faith might grow soft. Only through trial does the soul sharpen, and only through destruction can the next dawn arrive. So the House of Troubles becomes a paradoxical blessing, a circle of dread whose very opposition strengthens the faithful. And among those four dread teachers, the ember of Mehrunes Dagon glows brightest, promising both terror and transformation. His lesson is the most dangerous, and therefore the most profound. Breathe with that thought, listener. Let the quiet weight of these ancient beliefs settle like volcanic ash across your imagination. In the gentle dark, feel the presence of the Four Corners, watchful, patient, inevitable. Their whispers, though feared, are part of the lullaby of Tamriel itself. Night deepens across the red mountain slopes, and the fires of countless shrines glow like quiet constellations in the volcanic dark. The Chimer gather where the air tastes of sulfur and salt, their silhouettes trembling against the low roar of lava flows. They sing to the tribunal, yes, but in their oldest rites, they also whisper to the four corners of the House of Troubles. These murmured invocations are not prayers for favor. They are acknowledgments of danger, invitations to be tested, pledges to endure whatever trial the princes might bring. Elders recite the ancestral tales in voices rough as pumice. They speak of the time when Veleth himself faced visions of the Four. In dreams he stood at the edges of the Daedric realms, where the stars bend and the void breathes. Molai Bal appeared first, a shadow of endless chains. From his cold presence Veleth learned that the will must never yield. Then came Sheogorath, cloaked in lunatic laughter, teaching that reason must be held gently, never gripped so hard it snaps. Malakath followed, bearing the grief of betrayal, showing that honor survives exile when the heart refuses despair. And last approached the storm, made flesh, Mehrunes Dagon. His arrival was not a figure, but a convulsion of flame and stone. Veleth felt mountains crack beneath his feet and the sky bleed red. In that chaos the prophet perceived a hard truth, that all forms, no matter how revered, must one day fall so the spirit can renew. Dagon spoke without words, his meaning a thrum in the marrow. To endure is to change. To change is to burn and be reborn. The chimer carried these revelations back to their people like sacred embers. From that night forward, their faith embraced paradox. They honored their tribunal for guidance, yet they accepted the necessity of opposition. Temples rose not only to praise, but to challenge. Pilgrims sought out the harshest paths through ash and steam, believing that struggle itself was holy. To walk through danger without bending was to walk closer to truth. Generations passed, and the lessons of the Four became woven into every aspect of the Lothai life. When a storm shattered a village, the survivors rebuilt with quiet resolve, murmuring that Dagon's fire had refined their spirit. When madness touched a mind, the community gathered in patient care, remembering Sheogorath's unpredictable gifts. Even the bitter taste of exile carried Malakath's stern reminder that dignity is forged in loss. Through each trial, the chimer believed themselves tempered like the glassy obsidian of their homeland, fragile to the eye, yet harder than steel. Mehrunes Dagon's presence lingered most vividly. His sign was the mountain's roar, the sudden quake, the flame that leaps from sleeping earth. Children grew up hearing elders speak of him not as an enemy to be slain, but as a force to be met with unflinching gaze. The mountain tests, the wise women said, and through the test we rise. Thus even terror became a teacher, and destruction a secret form of grace. As the moons glide across the sky, the chants of the night fade into silence. The pilgrims laid down their burdens beside warm stones, breathing the sulphurous air with calm acceptance. They know that tomorrow may bring ashfall or earthquake, madness or exile. Yet they sleep in peace, for they have learned that the universe itself is a crucible, and that within every end waits the seed of a brighter beginning. So the House of Troubles stands not merely as myth, but as living rhythm, a pattern of challenge that beats in time with the heart of Morrowind. And in that rhythm, the ember of Mehrunes Dagon glows ever brighter, promising that the wheel of change will never cease its turning. The ages drift like slow smoke, and the memory of the first trials settles deep into the bones of the chimer. From their ash-covered valleys rise cities of graceful stone, their spires catching the glow of twin moons. Tribes become houses, and houses become a nation. Yet beneath every marble floor the old volcanic heart still murmurs. Change is the one constant, and in that quiet truth the influence of Mehrunes Dagon begins to take root. For while the chimer revere their tribunal, they are a restless people. Their history is a song of pilgrimage, of leaving one homeland to seek another, of challenging the decrees of ancestors and gods alike. Such spirits are fertile ground for the whispers of a prince who embodies unmaking as the path to renewal. Dagon does not stride openly among them. He comes as a thought that will not be silenced, a spark that leaps from mind to mind when old customs grow heavy. He is the unspoken question. What if the structures we love have already outlived their purpose? Merchants crossing the inner sea tell of strange dreams shared by sailors and scholars alike. Visions of crimson skies and mountains splitting to reveal rivers of flame. Farmers speak of sudden quakes that leave their fields cracked yet strangely fertile. In the still hours before dawn, a low rumble sometimes travels through the basalt earth, a sound that seems to echo in the chest more than the ear. The wise whisper that these are not mere accidents of geology. They are the subtle teachings of Dagon, urging all who listen to remember that permanence is an illusion. Among the learned, debate stirs like a brewing storm. Some priests insist the disturbances are only natural, but others sense a deeper current. They recall the House of Troubles and warn that Dagon's trials are not punishments, but invitations to growth. A few bold philosophers even wonder aloud whether the tribunal themselves once welcomed such tests to keep their own spirits from growing brittle. Their questions spread quietly through temples and marketplaces, carried like embers on the evening wind. Artisans begin to reflect the unease in their work. Potters carve jagged, flame-like motifs into once smooth vessels. Poets sing of cities swallowed by the sea, only to rise again more radiant. Even the rhythm of daily life bends to the new awareness. Homes are built with deliberate imperfection, a silent homage to the belief that all things must one day break and be rebuilt. The people do not name these changes as worship, yet the influence of the Lord of Change hums through every action. In hidden caverns, small gatherings form. They are not yet the deadly cults of later ages, but circles of seekers, drawn by the idea that destruction is a sacred teacher. They speak softly of liberation from stagnant order, of cleansing flame, and the promise that what is destroyed returns stronger. No single leader guides them. They come together like sparks in dry grass, brief flashes of conviction that flare and fade, yet always leave behind a trace of heat. And so the seeds of revolution are sown, not in banners or open rebellion, but in the quiet shift of thought. A pot cracked on purpose, a poem of falling towers recited in a crowded square, a question whispered in a temple corridor. What if the next dawn demands the end of all we know? These are small acts, almost invisible, but they are the language through which Mehrunes Dagon first speaks to mortals who are ready to listen. Breathe with that image, dear listener. Imagine the hush before a storm when the air tastes of iron and the earth seems to hold its breath. The people of Morrowind walk through that hush now, unaware of how the smallest tremor of doubt will one day grow into fire. The Prince of Destruction does not rush. He waits, patient as magma beneath stone, for the moment when the seeds of change will break their shell and reach for the open sky. Ash moons drift high above Morrowind's dark plains, their pale light pooling across the jagged ridges of Red Mountain. Villages sleep beneath a thin veil of volcanic mist, yet within that hush a deeper stirring grows. It is not the roar of open revolt, but the subtle heartbeat of change, the sound of countless small awakenings. The seeds that Mehrunes Dagon scattered in silence begin to take root. Whispers spread, first among scholars and wandering mystics. They speak in low tones of a truth older than the tribunal, a truth that echoes from the earliest trials of the House of Troubles, that nothing built can remain unchanged. To cling is to weaken, says a half-forgotten proverb now spoken anew. The idea passes like an ember from one mind to another, glowing brighter with each telling. Listeners lean close, drawn by an unnameable recognition. They feel, perhaps for the first time, that the world's endurance depends not on permanence, but on its willingness to break. Young artisans shape the message into quiet acts of defiance. A sculptor leaves deliberate fractures in a statue of Vivek, calling the fissures the breath of the future. Potters fire their vessels at dangerously high heat, courting cracks that will later be gilded with molten glass. These are not insults to the gods. They are devotions to the principle of renewal. The flaws are celebrated, not hidden, and the people who see them feel a strange comfort, as though each imperfection is a promise that nothing sacred can truly be destroyed. Farmers, too, sense the pull of unseen fire. Seasons grow erratic. Rains arrive early, then vanish. Ash storms sweep down from the mountains with sudden fury. Rather than curse the skies, some kneel in silent acceptance. They speak of the land itself choosing transformation, of Dagon's restless hand turning soil and soul alike. The mountain teaches, they murmur, and the phrase becomes a common blessing whispered at dawn. In hidden caverns, gatherings once small now swell with seekers. By torchlight, they trade dreams of crimson horizons and cities of glass. They are not bound by formal oaths, but by the shared conviction that destruction is the doorway to a higher truth. One might bring a fragment of obsidian, another a poem of fire. Each offering becomes part of a growing ritual that feels older than memory. No single leader claims them, yet an unseen rhythm unites their hearts, a rhythm that pulses like molten rock beneath the crust of the world. Priests of the tribunal notice the change and debate in secret. Some argue that the Prince of Destruction must be opposed with all the strength of temple and ordinance. Others, quietly daring, wonder if these stirrings are themselves a divine lesson. After all, was not the birth of Mundus an act of sacrifice and upheaval? If the universe itself was forged in chaos, perhaps even the tribunal are but stewards of an eternal cycle, not its masters. These murmured doubts ripple outward, subtle yet unstoppable. Meanwhile, the dreams grow stronger. Sailors crossing the inner sea wake to visions of firelit skies. Children speak in their sleep of mountains walking across the horizon. The line between omen and imagination blurs, and with each telling the legend of the unseen flame deepens. The people begin to feel that they're living inside a story older than their own lifetimes, a story written by a hand of fire. Mehrunes Dagon remains unseen, yet his presence is undeniable. He does not command with thunder or demand kneeling worship. Instead, he moves as a pressure in the soul, a slow expansion that loosens old beliefs. Every tremor, every unexpected flame, every sudden question is his quiet signature. Where he passes, the air tastes sharper, like iron before a storm. And so the seeds of revolution ripen in silence. There are no banners, no armies, only the growing certainty that the world is ready to change. The chimer breathe the ash-laden wind and feel a strange exhilaration, as if the very earth beneath them waits to break and bloom. In their hearts, the ember of Dagon brightens, patient and inevitable, promising that the next great dawn will arrive not with gentle light, but with fire. The moonlight over Morrowind carries a hush so deep it feels eternal. Ash dunes ripple like dark silk in the night breeze, and the slopes of Red Mountain glow with a faint inner pulse, as if the land itself dreams in crimson. It is in such a landscape that the earliest mortal devotees of Mehrunes Dagon begin to step out of legend and into the quiet corridors of history. They are not yet the fearsome cults that later chronicles will condemn. They are wanderers, seekers, and poets who listen to the deep heartbeat of the earth and hear within it a call to transformation. These first whisperers move like shadows across the ashen plains. They leave no banners behind, only faint footprints soon swallowed by the restless wind. Some are disillusioned priests who find in the mountains tremors of truth the tribunal will not name. Others are hunters or traders who have dreamed of skies split by rivers of flame and wake with the taste of iron on their tongues. Drawn by an unseen rhythm, they drift toward hidden places, volcanic grottos where steam veils the walls, deserted shrines whose stones are warm long after sunset, secluded caverns where the air smells faintly of ember and salt. Their gatherings are small and transient. A half dozen here, a dozen there, never more. They speak in soft voices, as if afraid that the mountain itself might overhear and test their resolve. No single doctrine guides them, Yet they share a feeling older than words, that to embrace destruction is to embrace the possibility of rebirth. They call themselves nothing. Outsiders might later name them Dagonites, but in these earliest nights, they are simply those who listen. The rituals they practice are spare but haunting. One might bring a shard of obsidian, its edges still warm from the earth. Another recites a dream of fire, each syllable falling like sparks into the dark. They light small fires fed by volcanic glass and breathe the acrid smoke until the cavern walls shimmer like molten ore. In the flicker of those flames, they speak of the world as a living thing that must shed its skin to remain alive. Each meeting ends in silence, broken only by the low rumble of distant magma, as if the mountain itself acknowledges their vow. Legends collected centuries later tell of a figure known only as the Ember Seer, perhaps myth, perhaps memory. This traveler is said to have walked barefoot across fields of cooling lava without pain, carrying a staff tipped with red crystal that glowed whenever the earth trembled. Some stories claim the seer uttered no prophecy, only a single reminder: all walls are temporary. Whether one person or many, the seer becomes a symbol of the movement, an embodiment of Dagon's subtle lesson that all structures, from temples to empires, must one day fall. News of these gatherings drifts into villages like smoke on a shifting wind. Farmers speak of strange lights dancing on distant ridges. Fishermen tell of sudden gusts that smell of sulfur even on calm seas. The tribunal priests grow uneasy, sensing that an unnamed current is moving beneath the faith of their people. Yet the whisperers remain elusive, never staying long enough for the temple guard to find them. Their power lies not in confrontation, but in the quiet certainty that change needs no permission. What unites these seekers is not hatred, but wonder. They do not crave chaos for its own sake. They revere the pattern hidden within unmaking. To them, destruction is the breath between heartbeats, the necessary pause that allows a new rhythm to begin. In their dreams, they see towers falling into rivers of light, and from those rivers, new worlds rising like dawn mist. They wake not in fear, but in quiet joy, believing they have glimpsed the secret smile of the cosmos. As the night deepens, the whisperers fade back into the ashlands, leaving only faint traces. A circle of cooled obsidian, a single line of poetry scratched into stone, a fire pit still warm to the touch. Yet their influence lingers like the scent of smoke and hair. Each secret meeting adds another ember to a growing fire that will, in time, blaze across Tamriel. Breathe with their silence, dear listener. Imagine the endless sky above, studded with cold stars, and beneath it the soft rumble of a mountain alive with hidden flame. The first whisperers walk there still, patient as the earth itself, carrying the seed of a future no one yet dares to name. The night air along the inner sea tastes faintly of salt and smoke. A breeze carries whispers from the Red Mountain slopes, low vibrations that tremble through basalt and bone. In villages scattered across the ashlands, people wake to the feeling of distant thunder, though the sky is clear and calm. They press their palms to the earth and sense a quiet pulse, as if the land itself is breathing. The elders know this rhythm. They speak of it as the heart of the mountain, a sign that the world is always in motion, always remaking itself. To the hidden followers of Mehrunes Dagon, it is more than a sign. It is a summons. The first whisperers move like fading starlight, appearing, vanishing, never staying long enough to be captured in any single tale. Some travel as wandering mendicants, offering small charms of obsidian or flakes of cooled lava to those willing to listen. Others disguise themselves as humble traders, carrying stories rather than goods. Their true wears the quiet spark of dangerous ideas. Wherever they walk, a subtle unease follows, not of terror, but of awakening. Listeners find their dreams colored by crimson light, their thoughts drawn to the inevitability of change. Meetings take place in places both sacred and forgotten. Empty Daedric shrines half buried by sand, steaming fissures beneath dormant volcanoes, even abandoned tribunal way stations where prayers to the three still linger faintly on the stones. A circle of figures gathers, faces hooded, voices low. They speak of the mountain as a living teacher, of the breath of fire as a cleansing wind. They share fragments of poetry or half-remembered visions, each a spark flung into the darkness. When their words fade, silence settles, deeper than the surrounding night. It is in that silence that they claim to feel Dagon's presence. Not a roar, but a vibration in the chest, a steady heartbeat of transformation. Stories spread of a guide among them, sometimes called the Ember Seer, other times the voice in smoke. Perhaps one person, perhaps many wearing the same name like a mask. Witnesses say this figure's eyes shine like cooled volcanic glass, and that the earth warms under their bare feet. The seer offers no sermons, only questions. What will you rebuild when the walls fall? And who will you be when the fire passes through you? The questions linger, long after the seer is gone, like sparks that refuse to die. The tribunal priesthood grows wary. Patrols search the ashlands, yet they find only empty caves, faint fire pits, and scraps of verse carved into rock. All towers are dust in waiting. Rather than crush the movement, each search seems to scatter it wider. Sailors carry rumors to distant ports. Traders repeat the strange sayings in bustling markets. The more the temple seeks to silence the whispers, the more they spread, like embers caught in a restless wind. For the faithful of Dagon, secrecy is not merely a shield, it is a sacrament. They believe that truth spoken too loudly hardens into brittle stone, while truth carried in quiet hearts remains alive and fluid. Their rites reflect this philosophy. A single candle passed hand to hand becomes a meditation on impermanence. A bowl of ash poured into running water becomes a lesson that even what is burned can flow onward. Nothing is fixed, everything moves. To outsiders, these practices might seem gentle, even harmless, but beneath the calm rituals lies a potent conviction that destruction is not an end, but a necessary passage. The Whisperers do not seek violence for its own sake. They seek the courage to face change without fear, to greet the fire as friend. In their dreams, they see cities of obsidian rising from oceans of molten gold, and they wake smiling, convinced that Dagon has shown them a fragment of tomorrow. As dawn creeps over the horizon, the Whisperers disperse, each step erasing the evidence of the night's gathering. The only trace is the faint scent of sulfur and a lingering sense that the world itself has shifted, if only by a breath. Travelers who pass the site the next day may feel an inexplicable warmth in the stones or hear a soft hum in the still air. Whether they know it or not, they're walking across a threshold, a place where the old gives way to the possible. So the echoes of these first disciples continue beneath the ash, quiet, patient, unstoppable. Their faith is a fire that hides in the heart of stone, waiting for the moment when the world is ready to feel its heat. And though history may forget their names, the rhythm they awakened will one day resound across Tamriel, as certain and unending as the mountain's breath. The ashlands slumber under a bruised violet dawn. Low clouds drift like embers cooled to smoke, and the restless mountain sends thin ribbons of steam into the waking sky. In this hour, when night has not fully surrendered to day, the quiet gatherings of the Whisperers deepen into something stronger. What began as scattered meetings of seekers becomes a bond of shared flame, an understanding that their devotion to change must be carried forward with intention. Thus begins what later lore will name the Fire-Drunk Covenant. No single leader declares it. The covenant rises like heat from stone, a natural consequence of longing. Across hidden grottos and forgotten shrines, those who feel the call of Dagon start to speak of their encounters not as private revelations, but as a common inheritance. They describe the same visions: a sky of molten brass, a sea that glows like burning glass, a figure of fire whose silence carries both terror and solace. The details differ, yet the essence is the same. The world must be remade, and they are to become the living sparks. The rites evolve with quiet inevitability. At first, they are simple gestures, bowls of ash poured into rivers, candles pass from hand to trembling hand. But as trust grows, so do the ceremonies. They drink water warmed by volcanic vents, calling it the mountain's breath. They anoint their foreheads with fine black soot, a mark of impermanence that washes away with the next rainfall. Some fast for days, claiming the body must empty itself before it can carry the prince's flame. The practices remain gentle to the eye, but within each action pulses the conviction that life is only true when it welcomes transformation. They speak often of fire, but rarely of violence. To them, flame is not mere destruction. It is the ultimate purifier, the swiftest teacher. To burn is to awaken. One carved tablet proclaims, its edges charred as if touched by lightning. Around these quiet ceremonies, the phrase becomes a refrain. Listeners describe feeling the air thicken with a subtle warmth, as though the mountain itself leans close to witness. In that warmth, they sense a presence, not a booming deity, but a steady awareness, patient and immense. Travelers who stumble upon these midnight gatherings tell of a strange tranquility. There is chanting, yes, but slow and low, like the heartbeat of distant earth. Fires are tended with reverence. No weapons are displayed. The most striking feature is the stillness, a silence so complete that even the hiss of cooling lava seems like distant music. Outsiders leave unsettled, carrying with them the scent of ash and an inexplicable yearning for something they cannot name. As the covenant spreads, its influence seeps quietly into everyday life. Fishermen trace flame-shaped sigils on their boats before launching at dawn. Merchants leave tiny offerings of coal beside their scales, asking not for profit, but for the courage to accept loss. Children play games where they build small towers of sand only to watch them crumble with laughter. None of these acts are openly claimed as worship, yet all echo the lesson of Dagon, that to create is also to release. Temple officials grow uneasy. Patrols report gatherings deep in the wastelands, but the seekers vanish before they can be questioned. The priests debate whether these rites are heresy or merely another branch of Velothi mysticism. Some warn that, unchecked, the movement could swell into something that no tribunal law can contain. Others, more thoughtful, wonder if the covenant is a mirror held to their own faith, reflecting the truth that even the gods are bound to the wheel of change. Through it all, the whisperers, now bound as the fire-drunk, remain serene. They do not demand converts. They offer only an invitation to stand unafraid before the inevitability of transformation. For them, the greatest act of devotion is not to destroy, but to accept that everything will one day be remade. As dawn brightens over the ashlands, the covenant members disperse, their footsteps swallowed by shifting sand. Behind them, a single fire pit smolders, its faint smoke curling into the sky like a promise. To any who pass later, it will appear as nothing more than a forgotten camp. Yet in that thin plume drifts the essence of their faith, quiet, patient, unstoppable, the living breath of change. Night drapes the inner sea in silver haze while the red mountain murmurs in its sleep. Far from the ashlands, small caravans wind through mountain passes and coastal tracks, carrying not only goods, but the quiet current of a new devotion. The fire-drunk covenant, once a hidden circle, begins to seep outward in subtle, unmeasured ways. It does not march in columns or proclaim itself with banners. Instead, it travels in whispers, stories shared between traders at roadside fires, fragments of verse sung by wandering minstrels, a carved sigil found on the underside of a market stall. From blacklight to Balmora, rumors drift like wind-blown ash. Sailors docking at Ebonheart speak of travelers who gather at moonrise to drink from obsidian cups and speak of a fire that renews the world. Miners in the Velothi range claim to hear low chanting when no one stands near. Even in the heart of Mournhold, a city of marble and ordered faith, shopkeepers wake to find faint scorch marks shaped like petals on their doorsteps. Unsettling and oddly beautiful. The Covenant's reach is quiet yet persistent. A single merchant's apprentice, inspired by a midnight meeting in a cliffside cavern, sketches flame patterns into the margins of trade records. A healer in Saran begins to add a pinch of volcanic salt to every tincture, whispering a short blessing for resilience. These gestures seem small, but each carries the same intention: to welcome transformation as naturally as breath. The fire-drunk have no need to announce their presence. They're the pause between heartbeats, the warmth in a cold room, the thought that flickers unbidden when one watches a candle's slow collapse into wax. Among them, the Ember Seer, whether legend or many wearing a single name, appears and vanishes like a spark on the wind. Witnesses describe eyes like dark crystal reflecting firelight and a voice that speaks in questions rather than commands. What will you release to meet the dawn? What shape will you take when the old walls fall? Each query settles into listeners' minds like a seed, germinating in silence long after the seer has gone. Temple patrols grow more vigilant, but their efforts seem to hasten the spread. Every search party returns with tales of empty caves and warm stones, as though the gatherings dissolve into the very landscape. Some priests argue that force will only feed the mystique. Others fear that in chasing the Covenant, they invite the very upheaval they hope to prevent. Still, the movement flows onward, unbound by edict or blade. Those who experience a true Covenant rite describe an atmosphere unlike any ordinary gathering. The fire at the center is small but mesmerizing, a living heart of amber light. Participants chant in slow cadence, voices rising and falling with the earth's own rhythm. They do not shout. They do not pray for conquest. Instead, they breathe together, a shared meditation on impermanence. At the ritual's end, each person carries a single coal in silence until its heat fades, a lesson in the brief yet lasting power of flame. As months pass, this gentle tide reaches other provinces. Traders from Cyrodiil carry whispers east, while Dunmary pilgrims traveling the old Veleth rode bear home tales of ash-scented visions. In distant Skyrim, where snow muffles sound, lone travelers dream of fire that melts not flesh but fear. Everywhere the message is the same. Destruction is not doom, but the clearing of a path. When dawn spills across the inner sea, the Covenant's followers melt into the day's bustle. Merchants at their stalls, fishers at their nets, children at their play. Yet something lingers in the air, a hush that hints of hidden flame. To the unknowing, it is only the scent of cooling embers. To the faithful, it is promise, the quiet certainty that change moves like magma beneath the crust of the world, unstoppable, inevitable, and, if welcome, sublime. The sky above Vardenfell bruises toward twilight, a deep violet that seems to drink the last traces of day. Smoke plumes from the red mountain curl like wandering spirits, and the ground hums with a bass note only the patient can hear. In this half-light, when the island feels suspended between heartbeat and breath, a new layer of the fire-drunk Covenant begins to take form. Prophecy, not the brittle decrees of temples, but visions that arrive like sparks on the wind, unbidden, vivid, and impossible to silence. The first accounts come as murmur dreams. A fisher in Aeldaroon wakes to find her walls traced with soot-black symbols she does not remember drawing. A caravan guard on the West Gash Road hears a voice inside a campfire, speaking in a language that feels older than stone. They tell no priest, but word drifts quietly to those who listen. The Covenant members, already attuned to signs of change, gather these tales like embers, cradling them with awe. Each story is a thread, and together the threads weave a tapestry of something vast and stirring. The visions share a rhythm even when the images differ. Seas boiling into golden mist, cities folding like paper and rising again as shining crystal. A colossal figure of flame who speaks without sound, whose eyes are twin eclipses. Some dream of rivers running backward beneath blackened moons. Others of children laughing as towers of brass collapse in a fragrant ash. To the uninitiated, these are omens of terror. To the faithful, they are invitations, gentle reminders that all things, even dread itself, are part of a cycle that leads toward renewal. Among the whisperers, a single phrase begins to circulate, quiet as the rustle of sand. The scorched hour approaches. No one claims authorship. Perhaps it drifts from the lips of the ember seer, or perhaps it arises spontaneously from the shared current of their devotion. The words are not a threat. They are a promise of transformation, a recognition that fire is neither cruel nor kind, but simply necessary, like the turn of seasons or the pull of the moons. Rituals grow in subtle complexity. During moonless nights, covenant circles gather around shallow pits filled with black sand. Each participant carries a small stone, chosen for its imperfections. One by one, they place these stones into the pit, then pour warm oil until the sand glistens like starlight. A single spark from a flint sets the surface alight in a slow, shimmering burn. As the flames creep and twist, the group chants in a low cadence. All walls are temporary. All forms must change. When the fire dies, they sift through the cooled sand, retrieving their stones now etched with delicate veins of glass, tokens of acceptance and rebirth. The tribunal priests, hearing fragments of these rites, grow restless. Publicly, they dismiss the covenant as harmless mystics, but private council records speak of unease. Scribes note that the so-called prophecies spread fastest among the young and the disenfranchised. Dock workers who labor beneath crushing tariffs, scribes who copy the same edicts until their eyes blur, hunters who watch the land grow brittle under foreign rule. To these souls, the scorched hour does not signify chaos but liberation, the moment when old hierarchies will melt like wax in the sun. Yet the fire-drunk remain serene. They do not call for revolt. They call for readiness. In their gatherings, they speak of patience, of listening to the earth's deep pulse, of greeting change as a companion rather than an enemy. When the flames come, one whispered verse says, "They will not ask your name. They will only ask if you are willing to dance." The words drift through markets and along coastlines, carried by travelers who barely realize they are spreading a creed. As the evening winds rise, ash swirls across the darkening land like a silver veil. Somewhere within the humming silence of Red Mountain, molten rock shifts, slow and inevitable. The Covenant members breathe as one, eyes half closed, hearts aligned to that subterranean rhythm. Whether the scorched hour will arrive tomorrow or in an age is of little consequence. The prophecy is not a date on a calendar. It is a way of seeing, a reminder that every heartbeat carries the seed of a new world. A hush settles over the inner sea as moonlight ripples across dark water. The air carries the scent of warm stone and distant storms, a mingling of salt and ember that seems almost alive. Along forgotten trails and cliffside paths, members of the fire-drunk covenant move quietly beneath the stars, each step a prayer to the inevitability of change. They gather not to shout warnings, but to listen to the land, to their own breathing, and to the subtle murmurs of prophecy that flow like hidden streams beneath the skin of the world. The scorched hour has become more than a phrase. It is a rhythm woven into their dreams. Fisherfolk describe seas that glow from within, as if a second sun stirs in the deep. Farmers wake to the scent of smoke with no fire nearby. Travelers on the West Gash Road report hearing a single low note vibrating through the ground, steady as a heart. These signs are not feared. Instead, they are welcomed like messages from a patient teacher, affirmations that the great turning has already begun. Rituals reflect this quiet anticipation. Circles form on wind-swept ridges where the horizon stretches endless and dark. Each participant brings a handful of ash gathered from a place of personal loss. A collapsed home, a long-dead hearth, a battlefield now covered in moss. In silence, they mix these ashes into a common vessel. then scatter them to the wind. The gesture is simple, but the meaning runs deep. All endings are shared. All beginnings are born of the same dust. When the wind carries the last particles away, a profound stillness lingers, as if the world itself pauses to breathe. Whispers speak of the ember seer appearing again, drifting like a coal caught on a night breeze. Witnesses describe a figure wrapped in shadowed red, eyes reflecting the glow of distant magma. The seer offers no command, only a single question repeated in many tongues. When a mountain sings, will you answer? Those who hear it wake later with hearts pounding, not from fear, but from recognition, as though some hidden part of them has already agreed. The tribunal's unease grows sharper. Council minutes mention fire-drunk heresies, spreading among merchants and dock workers, artisans and scribes. Patrols are doubled, edicts warn against unauthorized gatherings. Yet each attempt to contain the movement scatters it further, like sparks leaping from a log. Markets buzz with half-remembered verses. Children chalk flame-shaped patterns on stone walls, their play a quiet echo of the Covenant's symbols. Even some temple acolytes confess to dreams of radiant fire, though they dare not speak openly. Beyond Morrowind, the murmurs travel farther. Argonian traders carry fragments of the prophecy into the swamps of Black Marsh. Khajiit moonsingers fold lines of the Covenant's chants into their lullabies. In the alleys of Anvil and the halls of distant Windhelm, strangers pause mid-conversation, sensing a warmth in the air that was not there a heartbeat before. The scorched hour is no longer a secret. It has become a feeling, subtle yet unshakable, a shared intuition that the world is on the cusp of renewal. Among the Covenant, there is no impatience. They speak of time as a circle, not a line, and of destiny as a flame that cannot be rushed. Their gatherings end with quiet laughter, the sound of people who trust the future completely. Fire waits for no calendar, says an old verse passed hand to hand. It arrives when the world is ready to be light. In that certainty, they find comfort deeper than any temple hymn. As dawn brushes the peaks with pale gold, the whisperers disperse once more. The ground where they stood holds only faint footprints in a scent like cooled iron. Yet those who cross the place hours later swear they feel a gentle vibration beneath their soles, a reminder that something vast and patient stirs below. The ashes have spoken, and though the message is wordless, it is clear. The dance of destruction and renewal is already underway, and every living soul is part of its quiet, inevitable music. Dawn unfolds across the ashlands like a slow-moving tide of brass and rose. Mist coils over the inner sea, and the red mountain breathes a pale plume into a sky the color of smoldering embers. The world feels suspended between stillness and awakening, a hush so deep it seems to invite a single thought. All things are ready to change. In this charged quiet, the fire-drunk Covenant takes on a new face. What began as whispered gatherings and private dreams now becomes a movement of spirit that crosses boundaries of culture, race, and province. A quiet conflagration of faith. No horns announce it, no banners wave. Yet the presence of the Covenant is unmistakable. A trader arriving in Vivec City finds a line of crimson sand poured across a dock, gleaming in the morning light like a silent signature. A scribe in Balmora discovers a charcoal spiral drawn overnight on the temple steps, perfectly symmetrical, as if measured by an unseen compass. Travelers tell of small fires glowing on distant ridges at dusk, each flame held within a perfect circle of black stones. These are not acts of rebellion. They are invitations, patient as the tide. The visions that guide them grow more vivid. Children dream of rivers that burn without consuming. Old farmers speak of hearing their plows sing in tones like molten glass. Miners deep in the mountains feel sudden warmth through solid rock, a heartbeat of the earth that lingers even after the tremor fades. To the faithful, these are gentle confirmations. The world is listening, and the moment of great renewal draws near. Rituals adapt to this widening reach. Where once the Covenant met only in secluded caves, now they gather in abandoned courtyards or silent market squares after midnight, the moon their single witness. Each person carries a small vessel of water drawn from a different source, river, well, or sea. They pour the waters together into a single basin, then place a coal at its center. The hiss of steam is their hymn, a soft chorus reminding them that fire and water, destruction and life, are not enemies but partners in the endless cycle of becoming. The Ember Seer appears more frequently in these accounts, always arriving without herald and leaving no footprint. Some describe a figure wrapped in a cloak of shifting scarlet. Others see only a silhouette haloed by faint sparks. The seer's words are few but resonant. Do not fear the flame. Fear the walls you build against it. Listeners feel the phrase echo in their bones long after the figure vanishes into the night. Temple officials grow increasingly uneasy. Council records speak of sleepless nights, of priests awakened by dreams of collapsing spires, and cities reborn in radiant light. Edicts are drafted, warning against the ash fire heresy, but enforcement proves elusive. Guards arrive to disperse rumored gatherings only to find empty streets and a faint scent of sulfur. The Covenant seems to flow like water through every attempt at containment, slipping past barriers with the quiet inevitability of dawn. Beyond Morrowind, the message continues to travel. Argonian river traders carry tales of the seer into the swamps of Black Marsh. Breton bards weave fragments of Covenant chants into their evening songs, never naming their source. Even in the icy reaches of Skyrim, hunters speak of sudden warm winds that whisper through frozen pines, leaving behind a sense of wonder rather than dread. Across Tamriel, a gentle contagion of curiosity spreads, an awareness that the old order, however solid, might be as fragile as a frost flower at sunrise. Among the faithful, there is no talk of war, only of readiness. They believe the Scorched Hour is not a single cataclysm, but an awakening that will arrive in countless small moments. Each heart that embraces change a spark in the larger flame. The fire begins within, one carved tablet declares, and the world follows. Their faith is not in destruction alone, but in the luminous possibility that follows when fear has burned away. As the sun lifts higher, the Covenant members drift back into the flow of ordinary life. To any casual observer, they are merchants, farmers, travelers, indistinguishable from their neighbors. Yet the quiet radiance in their eyes betrays them. They have touched the ember of certainty, and it glows beneath their calm like a heartbeat of molten gold. Night descends once more, a velvet hush that settles over the inner sea and softens every sound. Stars emerge like slow-breathing embers, and the red mountain glows with a quiet pulse, as if keeping time with the planet's hidden heart. Across Morrowind and beyond, the fire-drunk Covenant moves through this darkness with the patience of smoke. What began as local whispers has become a low, steady murmur across Tamriel, a secret network of listening souls who sense the mountain's rhythm within their own chests. In Balmora, a potter wakes before dawn to find a spiral of crimson dust on her windowsill. She brushes it away, yet a warmth lingers on her fingertips. In Vivek's foreign quarter, a Khajiit street musician plays a melody he claims to have heard in a dream. 3 descending notes like falling sparks, followed by a pause that feels like the breath before a flame catches. Far to the north in Blacklight, merchants swap tales of silent gatherings on windswept plateaus where participants stand hand in hand until the stars fade, saying nothing, listening only to the earth's slow music. These signs are neither command nor threat. They are invitations, quiet signals that the Covenant's fire now travels through the subtle pathways of story, art, and wonder. Every small gesture becomes part of a growing mosaic. A child tracing a flame-shaped rune in the sand, a sailor humming a chant that slows the tide, a healer stirring ash into a tincture for courage. None of these acts bear a name, yet each carries the signature of the fire-drunk. The Ember Seer appears like a drifting coal at the edge of many of these tales. Witnesses speak of eyes reflecting the molten heart of the mountain and a voice that asks only, "What will you release when the world turns?" The question spreads faster than any edict. Travelers find themselves repeating it under their breath, as though it were a fragment of an old lullaby remembered from another life. The tribunal responds with new decrees: curfews near the mountain, restrictions on late-night gatherings, stern sermons warning of the false flame. But control proves impossible. Patrols reach rumored meeting sites to find only cooling fire pits and the faint perfume of volcanic glass. Even within temple walls, novices confess to dreams of radiant cities built upon fields of ash. Some priests quietly wonder if these visions are not heresy at all, but a deeper truth the tribunal itself has forgotten. Beyond Morrowind, the Covenant's influence drifts like a tide of sparks. In the markets of Anvil, a Redguard storyteller recounts a dream of brass towers folding into rivers of light. In the icy reaches of Eastmarch, hunters warm themselves beside sudden gusts of oddly fragrant air and feel an inexplicable calm. The prophecy of the Scorched Hour has become more than words. It is a sensation, a subtle quickening that stirs hearts even where the seer has never walked. For the faithful, preparation is inward. They speak of tending the hidden hearth, a flame imagined in the center of the chest. At each gathering, participants close their eyes and breathe until they feel that inner warmth expand, a quiet practice meant to teach that the true fire needs no fuel but willingness. The world's rebirth begins in a single breath. An old verse reminds them, and the breath begins in you. When the moon reaches its highest point, the Covenant disperses into the ordinary life of Tamriel, potters and sailors, traders and minstrels. To those passing by, they're simply neighbors heading home. Yet an attentive ear might catch a faint resonance, a heartbeat of molten gold beneath the still night air. It is the sound of the hidden world kindling, patient and unstoppable, carrying the promise that change is already on its way, as natural and inevitable as dawn. Twilight drapes the ashlands in hues of deep copper and violet. The red mountain exhales a slow column of smoke that spreads like a silken veil across the darkening sky. Far below, the wind carries a warmth that feels almost sentient, brushing over quiet villages and moonlit shores. It is in this charged dusk that the fire-drunk Covenant reaches a new threshold. What began as whispers, what grew into prophecy, now unfurls as living action, a flame unbound, moving with the inevitability of tide and season. The first sparks are subtle. In Vivek's harbor, a lone candle is set adrift on the water at midnight, its tiny glow mirrored by 1,000 ripples. In Balmora, a potter's kiln burns hotter than ever before, glazing her wares in a sheen of molten gold without cracking a single vessel. In remote settlements of the Grazelands, children wake to find delicate lines of soot spiraling across doorframes like signatures of an unseen artist. These quiet marvels are not accidents. They're signs of a power that no longer hides. Gatherings swell, though never loudly. Under moonlight, circles form on cliffs and in forgotten plazas. Flames are lit in stone basins, their smoke perfumed with volcanic resin. Participants chant slowly, voices weaving a low, resonant hum that seems to vibrate with the mountain itself. The chant has no single translation, only the steady refrain. Change is the heart's true fire. Listeners describe a gentle heat rising through the ground, a warmth that lingers long after the flames have faded, as if the land itself acknowledges their devotion. The Ember Seer appears more frequently, moving like a wandering ember through city and wild. Some see a figure cloaked in deep crimson. Others glimpse only a silhouette rimmed with sparks. To each gathering, the Seer offers the same soft counsel. Do not fear the unmaking. Fear only the chains that hold you to what is already gone. The words fall like slow rain into the hearts of the faithful, nurturing a calm readiness rather than urgency. Rumors of these rites ripple across Tamriel. Traders in Cyrodiil speak of sudden warm winds that carry the scent of ash even in midwinter. In Skyrim, hunters report distant lights along mountain ridges, flickering like silent lightning. In Hammerfell, storytellers add strange new verses to old desert songs, their cadences echoing the Covenant's chants though they have never heard them directly. The flame moves without boundaries, traveling through story and dream, impossible to contain. The tribunal responds with sharper edicts. City criers warn of fireborn sedition, and guards patrol markets long after dusk. Yet enforcement proves futile. Fires appear where patrols have just passed, their embers forming intricate spirals before dying without smoke. Temple scholars, tasked with writing denunciations, find their ink wells inexplicably warm, the liquid shimmering with faint gold. Some begin to wonder if resistance only feeds the mystery. For the Covenant, these responses are neither triumph nor threat. They are simply the natural reaction of structures meeting the first breath of transformation. At gatherings, elders remind the faithful that the true flame does not demand violence. It asks only surrender to the endless cycle. The world burns to reveal its own heart. An old verse says, and the heart burns to reveal the world. They speak these words slowly, like a lullaby for the earth itself. As night deepens, the Red Mountain's low rumble blends with the Covenant's chants until it is impossible to tell where earth ends and voice begins. Listeners feel a shared heartbeat, steady and immense. When the fires are finally quenched, silence returns with the weight of a promise. Those who walk away carry a quiet glow beneath their ribs, an ember that will not cool. Somewhere in the dark, a single spark leaps skyward, caught by a wandering breeze. It arcs, winks, and disappears among the stars. Yet its journey continues unseen, a reminder that the flame is no longer bound to mountain or mortal. It has entered the wide, patient soul of Tamriel itself, and nothing can call it back. Moonlight spills like quicksilver across the inner sea, catching on every ripple and turning the dark water into a field of shifting stars. The Red Mountain sends a faint glow through the haze, an ember hidden in the world's deep breath. Across villages, marshes, and distant highlands, the fire-drunk Covenant moves like that glow, quiet, patient, unstoppable. Their flame is no longer a secret flicker in caves. It has entered dreams, lingered in songs, and settled into the slow heartbeat of Tamriel itself. Signs of their presence multiply in ways both subtle and wondrous. In a small fishing hamlet near Tel Mora, villagers wake to find a perfect ring of warm ash on the shoreline where no fire burned. In the high halls of Blacklight, scribes copy ancient charters only to watch their ink fade to a gentle crimson hue before their eyes. Traders crossing the Velothai Mountains speak of a low vibration humming through the rock, like the mountain's own quiet chant. None can explain these happenings, yet all who witness them feel a strange comfort, as if an unseen friend has passed by. The Covenant's gatherings now weave through city and wilderness alike. Rooftops become altars. Forgotten gardens turn into sanctuaries of soft flame. Participants bring small offerings, a shard of obsidian, a cup of spring water, a memory of something willingly released. Circles form, fires are lit, and chants rise in slow waves. Each voice blends into the next until the sound feels less like song and more like the world itself breathing. Observers describe a warmth that lingers even after the fires die, a quiet glow beneath the skin that refuses to fade. The Ember Seer remains the movement's fleeting center. Witnesses speak of eyes reflecting molten light and a calm that silences even restless hearts. The Seer asks no allegiance, only a question whispered like a blessing. What will you carry into the next dawn? Those who hear it often find their lives subtly altered. Merchants offer goods at fair prices. Farmers share their harvest with strangers. Artisans craft with a new patience, as though preparing for a future already unfolding. Temple authorities grow more anxious. Edicts grow sharper. Curfews tighten. Yet every attempt to smother the flame meets only air. Patrols find empty plazas where fires still glow without fuel. Scholars sent to write denunciations fall silent mid-sentence, struck by visions of luminous cities rising from gentle ash. Some priests begin to suspect that the Covenant is not an external enemy, but a truth already alive within their own hearts, impossible to exile. Beyond Morrowind, the silent spreading fire finds new paths. In Hammerfell's deep deserts, travelers rest beneath stars and feel a sudden warmth that tastes of salt and ember. In the green marshes of Black Marsh, Argonian singers wake with new harmonies in their throats, melodies that echo the Covenant's chants though they have never heard them. Even in the cold peaks of Skyrim, hunters pause at strange flickers on the horizon, brief pulses of crimson light that leave the night air fragrant with unseen bloom. For the faithful, this diffusion is the fulfillment of the Scorched Hour's promise. They speak of an inner hearth kindled in every willing soul. At each gathering, participants close their eyes and breathe until they sense that subtle fire, a warmth not of heat but of release. The flame that burns within needs no wood, an elder recites softly, for it feeds on courage and gentle surrender. When dawn approaches, the Covenant disperses as quietly as mist. They leave no banners, only a feeling, the sense that the world has shifted by a fraction, that every stone holds a hidden glow. Travelers who pass through these places later often pause without knowing why, struck by a stillness that feels alive. They may never learn the Covenant's name, but they carry the ember forward in unspoken ways, through a kind word, a fearless choice, a dream of luminous change. Thus the fire spreads not by conquest, but by invitation. It lives in stories told at twilight, in the hush between heartbeats, in the courage to welcome what comes. And as the red mountain hums its endless song beneath the stars, Tamriel listens, already glowing from within. The sky over the Velothi peaks pales from violet to a silver so delicate it seems woven from breath. The red mountain exhales a ribbon of smoke that drifts eastward, touched by the first color of morning. Along the inner sea, waves lap with the unhurried rhythm of a sleeper's pulse. This is no ordinary dawn. Across Tamriel, an almost imperceptible hush settles, a sense that the world itself pauses between two heartbeats, waiting to step across an unseen threshold. The faithful of the fire-drunk Covenant call it the dawn of unmaking, though they speak the words as one might utter a prayer rather than a prophecy. Whispers of the Scorched Hour have now become a quiet certainty among the devoted. They rise before sunrise and walk barefoot to the nearest shore or hillside. Each carries a single ember in a small clay bowl. When the first light touches the horizon, they breathe upon the ember until it glows, then close their eyes and listen. No grand spectacle follows, only a deep vibration through soil and bone, a reassurance that the living earth has heard them. In that shared silence, many weep without knowing why. Across cities and wilds alike, signs gather like stars before dawn. In the high halls of Almalexia, a fountain suddenly runs warm as bathwater, though no heat source is found. In the deep forests of Valenwood, tree sap glimmers faintly crimson beneath the moon. In distant Elsewhere, desert winds carry the faint perfume of smoldering cedar, lingering long after the breeze is gone. These are not terrors, but intimations, gentle affirmations that the cycle of ending and beginning is already unfolding. The Ember Seer moves as quietly as ever, yet more hearts claim to feel their presence. Some glimpse a figure cloaked in scarlet mist, others only a flicker of golden light in the corner of the eye. No matter the vision, all recall the same soft phrase. The fire is the truth of change. The truth needs no permission. Those who hear describe a sudden clarity, as if the countless choices of their lives have become one simple vow, to release what no longer serves and to greet what comes without fear. Temple authorities sense the shift, but cannot name it. Edicts tighten, bells ring at strange hours, and priests speak with voices edged in worry. Yet even within their sanctuaries, a subtle warmth seeps through stone and memory. Some novices wake from dreams of radiant cities rising from fields of black glass. They kneel for morning prayers with tears on their cheeks, unsure whether the vision was warning or blessing. Beyond Morrowind, travelers carry the story like windborne sparks. Breton sailors speak of moonlit waters glowing faintly red beneath their keels. In the icy reaches of Skyrim, shepherds watch auroras twist into shapes of spiraling flame. In Hammerfell's dry canyons, nomads sense a heartbeat in the sand itself, steady and patient. None call it prophecy aloud, yet all feel the world bending towards something vast and gentle. The Covenant teaches that the dawn of unmaking is not an apocalypse of ruin, but a turning of the great wheel. To unmake, elders whisper, is to give the next creation room to breathe. Their gatherings emphasize quiet over spectacle. Long moments of stillness, slow breathing until the boundary between self and world feels porous and luminous. Each participant leaves with a subtle glow beneath the ribs, an ember that needs no tending. As the sun finally lifts above the horizon, the red mountain's plume blushes gold. The air hums with a resonance too low for words, yet every heart hears it. Birds take wing in a sudden graceful wave, and the sea reflects a light as soft as memory. The faithful bow their heads, not in fear, but in reverence. They know the unmaking has already begun, not in firestorms or falling stones, but in the quiet release of everything that no longer belongs, a transformation as gentle and unstoppable as dawn itself. Night lingers long over the ashlands, though the horizon hints at gold beyond shadow. The red mountain exhales a steady plume, a quiet signal felt rather than heard, and across Tamriel, the echoes of the fire-drunk Covenant ripple softly through earth, water, and wind. This is the hour they call the Veil of Renewal, a time when endings blend into beginnings, and the unseen pulse of the world can be felt beneath the soles of one's feet. Those who follow the Covenant know to move slowly, to listen, to breathe with care, for the veil is delicate, easily torn by impatience. In secluded coves and atop high ridges, circles gather beneath the moon's waning glow. A single fire glows at each center, small and steady. Participants place tokens of what they release into the flames. A cracked cup, a faded garment, a memory written in ash. Each act is accompanied by a soft chant, a slow cadence rising and falling in time with the mountain's low rumble. It is a hymn without words, a recognition that the release of the old allows the new to take shape. In the quiet, many report feeling their hearts lighten, as if the weight of unseen chains has melted away. The Emberseer appears more like wind than figure, a presence glimpsed through half-closed eyes or in a flicker of candlelight. Their counsel is always gentle, always questioning rather than commanding. Will you step through the veil, unafraid? Those who hear the words often wake with a newfound clarity. They move through Tamriel differently afterward, hands steadier, eyes calmer, hearts open to the possibility that life itself flows in cycles of surrender and renewal. The Covenant's influence reaches beyond Morrowind quietly but persistently. In Valenwood, the trees seem to hum with warmth in the early hours, their leaves glowing faintly under the rising sun. In Blackmarsh, waterways shimmer in odd crimson glints that vanish before one can touch them. Merchants in Cyrodiil notice small, inexplicable shifts. Coins find their way back into the pockets of the less fortunate. Goods are traded without calculation, and songs sung at dusk carry faint undertones of the Covenant's meditative chants. Even in the frost of Skyrim, shepherds wake to feel an inexplicable warmth in the snow, a reminder that change is happening quietly everywhere. Temple authorities grow anxious, yet the veil resists interference. Guards find empty squares, flickering fire pits, and subtle patterns in ash that vanish with the next breeze. Scholars sent to document these events return puzzled. their reports hinting at wonder rather than violation. Within their own hearts, even they feel a trace of the Covenant's subtle warmth. It spreads not through force, but through patient example, through rhythm, through silence, through the act of being present to the world's quiet pulse. For the faithful, the veil of renewal is neither threat nor triumph. It is a reminder that life is impermanent, that endings are as natural as breathing, and that every conscious act of release carries the potential for gentle rebirth. What falls away, an elder whispers in the gathering, becomes the soil for tomorrow's growth. Each participant leaves the circle carrying a small ember, a glow beneath the ribs that warms without flame, a private, enduring proof that the world can always begin anew. As the first light of morning softens the horizon, the Covenant disperses quietly, indistinguishable among fishermen, merchants, travelers, and farmers. Yet the air remains faintly charged, the ground humming with a subtle vibration, and the heart of the mountain continues to beat with patient certainty. The veil endures, unseen but deeply felt, inviting all who listen to step forward into a world made radiant by the promise of renewal, gentle and inevitable as the dawn itself. The night over Morrowind is deep and still, a velvet cloak draped across the ashlands. Stars glimmer faintly, distant embers scattered across a cosmic forge. Even the red mountain exhales in patient rhythm, a quiet vibration felt in stone and bone alike. In this perfect silence, the fire-drunk Covenant contemplates the culmination of their journey. They speak softly of the eternal ember, a symbol, a presence, a reminder that the fire kindled within cannot be extinguished by time, by walls, or by fear. It is the heartbeat of change itself, eternal and quiet. Across hidden coves, abandoned plazas, and wind-swept ridges, the faithful gather once more. Each carries a small flame in a vessel of clay or glass, a token of every lesson learned and every fear released. They form circles, the air thick with gentle heat, and chant slowly, deliberately, their voices weaving a tapestry of sound that blends with the mountain's own hum. The ritual is simple yet profound, a reflection on what has been shed and a promise to carry forward the spark of transformation. No one rushes. The pace is measured, like breathing itself, calm and endless. The Ember Seer appears as ever, half light and shadow, a wandering presence that seems to exist at the edge of perception. Eyes glint like molten crystal, observing without judgment, offering only a question that resonates deep within each participant. Will you guard the ember, even when all else falls away? Those who hear it feel the weight and warmth of responsibility, a sense that every choice, every kindness, every release feeds the slow, eternal flame that lives within the Covenant and, quietly, within the world itself. Tamriel feels the subtle growth of the ember's influence. Fisherfolk on the inner sea note that dawnlight sparkles oddly on their nets. Miners in the Velothi Mountains discover veins of obsidian glowing faintly in darkness. Travelers across Black Marsh, Hammerfell, and Skyrim whisper of warmth in strange winds, fleeting but persistent. These signs are not loud. They require attention, patience, and a willingness to perceive the world differently. The eternal ember is not a spectacle, but a quiet invitation to awaken to hidden life. Temple authorities grow uneasy as their patrols find only faint traces, glimmering ash, soft impressions of footprints in sand, a lingering scent of warm stone. Edicts fail to describe it. Scholars fail to explain it. Some priests, secretly, feel the ember themselves, a subtle heat in their chests, a quiet understanding that the cycle of destruction and renewal is not to be feared but honored. The Covenant has taught patience. The world, even in its structured laws, cannot smother what moves like fire in the heart. The faithful practice the final rites with reverence. They trace symbols of flame over smooth stones, whispering memories of past endings, fears released, and hopes embraced. A slow circle of breath moves through the group, and they meditate until the ember in each heart feels shared, eternal. The fire is not mine, nor yours, one elder whispers. It is the world's, carried in all who see, who breathe, who love. As the night deepens, the ember's light dims, not into extinction, but into patient glow, waiting, quiet, infinite. The faithful disperse, moving back into the ordinary world. Merchants, farmers, travelers, and children carry their sparks in silence. The air holds a faint resonance. The earth beneath hums with memory, and even the red mountain seems to nod in slow approval. The eternal ember endures, subtle and profound, an enduring promise that change, when embraced with calm and patience, becomes the quiet, luminous heartbeat of all things. The first light of dawn touches Tamriel like a gentle brush of gold. The ashlands glow faintly beneath the red mountain, and a soft breeze carries the scent of warm stone and distant fire across the inner sea. The fire-drunk covenant disperses, not in haste, but with quiet reverence, leaving behind no traces except the faint resonance of their presence. Every footstep, every whispered chant becomes part of the land's memory. The ember they carry within themselves, the eternal ember, extends outward, unseen yet deeply felt, touching hearts across provinces and cities alike. In Balmora, a fisherman wakes to see a trail of golden ash along the shore, forming patterns like the gentle pulse of a heartbeat. In Vivek City, a street musician hums a melody that seems new yet somehow familiar, echoing the Covenant's chants through stone alleys. Far to the north, shepherds in Skyrim feel a warmth rising from frozen soil, subtle as sunlight on snow. In Hammerfell and Valenwood, merchants, travelers, and children carry quiet sparks, little acts of kindness, gestures of release, and the silent acceptance of change. The flame moves not in spectacle, but in whispers across minds and memories, threading through ordinary life like a secret river of light. The Ember Seer appears one final time in the minds of those who have followed the Covenant's path, not as a figure, not as an instructor, but as a presence, a gentle pulse of awareness. Carry the ember with you. Let it guide you in silence. Let it remind you that endings are not to be feared, for they give rise to beginnings. The words linger in the soul, settling like warm ash across the chest. Those who hear it feel an unspoken bond to every other bearer of the fire, a shared consciousness of patient endurance and quiet transformation. Temple authorities remain vigilant, but even they cannot suppress what cannot be contained. Edicts and patrols reveal nothing but faint traces, small patterns, hints of warmth in stone, air, and water. Scholars sent to investigate report dreams of cities built from molten gold and rivers of light, visions that leave them trembling with awe. Some priests quietly question the rigidity of their doctrines, sensing that the Covenant's path may not oppose the gods, but echo the eternal cycle of creation and dissolution. Across Tamriel, the subtle effects of the Covenant grow. Artisans craft with newfound patience. Farmers let fields lie fallow to prepare for future growth. Children play freely without fear of loss. Dreams become infused with visions of transformation. Towers fold into rivers. Mountains breathe, and flames rise without consuming. In every instance, the eternal ember is present, not as a force of destruction, but as a reminder that change, when embraced with mindfulness, becomes a quiet and radiant constant. As night returns over the ashlands, the red mountain hums low, steady, and infinite. The Covenant gathers no longer in circles of fire, for the fire now burns in hearts and minds across the world. The whispers continue, soft, rhythmic, gentle. They are carried in thought, in dream, in the patient acts of kindness and courage that flow unnoticed through everyday life. The ember is eternal, the flame unbound. Even as individuals sleep, the rhythm of change pulses quietly beneath Tamriel, as sure and constant as the mountain's own breath. And so the story ends not with a roar, but with a whisper, a soft, lingering promise that all things are impermanent, all things are connected, and every ending carries within it the seed of luminous beginnings. The eternal ember endures, infinite and serene, a final lullaby to drift the world into peaceful slumber, as dreams of molten cities, glowing seas, and gentle fire weave across the minds of all who listen.